Let's be honest, motorcycle culture ain't what it used to be. In some places, it's still alive and kicking, but in others, it's wheezing like a carbureted twin on bad gas. Events are smaller, clubs are aging out, dealerships are closing their doors, and the streets that used to rumble with weekend rides, now they're filled with Teslas and e-scooters. This isn't about complaining, it's about figuring out why. The reasons motorcycle culture is dying vary wildly depending on where you are. In some countries, it's government policy. In others, it's generational shift. And in plenty of places, it's death by 1,000 small cuts. So, today, we're breaking down the real reasons the culture is fading in parts of the world and what might come next. Some of this will hit close to home. Some of it might surprise you. But if you care about bikes and the world around them, this is the kind of conversation we need to have. Let's get into it. Before we dive deep, if you're passionate about two wheels, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. We're building a community here, and your likes, comments, and shares help us keep these crucial conversations going. So, share your thoughts below as we explore this topic together. Number 1. Strict environmental regulations are choking out bikes in places like Germany, France, and the UK. Motorcycles are being strangled by a noose of environmental policy. Low-emission zones now dominate city centers, and older bikes, especially two-strokes, are being outright banned or taxed into extinction. Some cities require your bike to meet Euro 5 standards just to park, let alone ride through the city center. The problem? These policies often lump motorcycles in with cars, despite the fact that bikes generally consume less fuel, take up less space, and produce fewer emissions. But since many older bikes don't have modern catalytic converters or advanced emission systems, they're treated like polluting dinosaurs. It's especially ironic when you consider how many urban riders use motorcycles as a practical alternative to gridlock traffic and oversized SUVs. But logic doesn't seem to matter much here. Environmental policy has become so aggressive in parts of Europe that many young people simply avoid bikes altogether, knowing their city may ban them tomorrow. The end result? A shrinking culture, a declining used market, and generations who will never experience the raw sound of a two-stroke echoing through cobbled streets. We didn't kill the culture. Policymakers regulated it to death. Number 2. Insurance costs are getting out of control. If you're a young rider in Canada or the UK, owning a motorcycle can feel like trying to register a missile. A 20-year-old on a Ninja 400 might be paying $3,000 a year or more just for insurance. And no, that doesn't include theft coverage, gear, or any extras. That's just to be allowed on the road. In some provinces and regions, motorcycle premiums are calculated in ways that make no sense. They punish engine size even when the bike is light and underpowered. Others lump motorcycles in with sport cars for risk classification. And in most places, you don't get any reward for being safe because a single claim or speeding ticket can double your rate. So what happened? New riders crunched the numbers and realized that for the cost of owning a motorcycle, they could drive a small used car, haul their friends, and not get drenched every time it rains. And just like that, the dream of two wheels dies before it even starts. When insurance companies price young people out, they're not just losing a customer, they're killing the future of the motorcycle world. Number 3. Cultural shifts are killing the rebel image. There was a time when riding a motorcycle meant something. In places like the United States, especially in the 60s through the 90s, bikes were tied to rebellion, independence, and raw identity. You weren't just going for a ride. You were flipping the bird to conformity. Today, that middle finger has turned into a selfie stick. The cultural archetype of the badass biker is fading, especially in urban areas. Instead of Steve McQueen or Peter Fonda, the modern bike image is often reduced to weekend warriors in matching leathers or social media influencers showing off gear on TikTok. The raw, gritty image that once drew people in has been sterilized. And let's face it, a lot of people now associate loud pipes and leather vests with being obnoxious rather than cool. In a lot of cities, people see bikes as noisy, dangerous, or even a public nuisance. Laws about modified exhausts, noise limits, and parking crackdowns reinforce this stigma. Motorcycles are no longer the cool outsider's vehicle. They're something your neighbor complains about in the community Facebook group. Without the cultural fuel of freedom, rebellion, and identity, fewer young people feel the urge to ride. And that cultural vacuum is one of the quietest killers of motorcycle spirit. Number 4. Licensing is way too complicated and expensive. In theory, licensing systems are supposed to make riding safer. In practice, they're scaring people off before they ever swing a leg over a seat. In places like Australia, Japan, and across much of Europe, getting a motorcycle license isn't just a formality. It's a grueling, expensive, multi-stage obstacle course that takes months or even years to complete. Let's take Australia. You start with a learner's permit, then move to a provisional license, and finally a full license. Each stage requires its own fees, training days, and time limits. Screw up on timing or move to a different state, and you might have to start over. In Japan, the tests are notoriously strict. Even skilled riders often fail multiple times just for putting a foot down or missing a turn signal. It's like they don't want you to pass. Then there's the cost. Riding schools can charge thousands for lessons, tests, and mandatory safety. Add registration fees, inspection costs, and insurance. And you're looking at a major investment before you've even bought your first bike. For a lot of young people, especially students or low-income workers, it's a non-starter. The result? Motorcycle culture becomes a gated community instead of an open road. People give up halfway or don't even bother. And when the barrier to entry is that high, it's no wonder bike culture is fading in those regions. Number 5. Urbanization and car culture are taking over. There was a time when cities and motorcycles went hand in hand. Tight alleys, quick commutes, easy parking. But in modern megacities like Los Angeles, Toronto, and Tokyo, that connection is breaking down. Urbanization has exploded. Instead of becoming more bike-friendly, many cities are turning hostile. Start with traffic. You'd think it would make motorcycles more appealing. But in many dense urban areas, traffic is so chaotic or poorly managed that filtering becomes dangerous or outright illegal. In cities like LA, where lane splitting's legal, most drivers still act like they've never seen a motorcycle before. In Toronto, it's banned altogether, so you're stuck sweating between SUVs like everyone else. Then there's parking. It used to be easy. Slide into any tiny space and be on your way. Now, many cities don't allow bike parking on sidewalks, have cracked down on informal spots, or simply don't provide dedicated spaces. You end up circling the block or risking a fine just to stop for coffee. On top of that, car culture is still king. Financing a car is easier, safer, and often seen as more adult. Add rising electric car incentives, car-sharing apps, and public transport investments, and the motorcycle feels less like freedom and more like a burden. Urbanization should have been a win for bikes, but instead, it's slowly smothering them. Number 6. The motorcycle industry forgot how to market to young people. In countries like the United States and the UK, motorcycle brands used to sell dreams, freedom, rebellion, style. Now they're selling chrome-laden grandpa cruisers, overpriced adventure bikes, and $30,000 touring couches to people who already own 4 bikes in a garage lift. Let's be honest, when was the last time a 22-year-old got excited about a new Harley or a BMW? Even Yamaha's marketing has drifted toward responsible adult with a helmet collection. These brands have spent years milking their existing, aging fan base instead of cultivating a new one. The result? A youth vacuum. You walk into some dealerships and you feel like you've interrupted a retiree's breakfast club. Financing terms are aimed at people with decades of credit. Gear is expensive and fashionably bland, and ads? They're either chasing nostalgia or trying so hard to be edgy they land somewhere between cringy and irrelevant. Meanwhile, the youth market is shifting towards e-bikes, scooters, or simply not riding at all. Smaller displacement bikes do exist, like the Rebel 500, the KTM Duke 390, but they're rarely promoted with the same passion or budget. The problem isn't the bikes themselves, it's that the industry lost the plot on how to make riding look cool to someone who wasn't born before Nirvana released Nevermind. Number 7. Safety paranoia and overprotective parenting. In the US, Canada, and Australia, motorcycles have a branding problem, and it starts in the home. For many parents, the word motorcycle triggers the same instinctive panic as skydiving without a parachute. It's danger wrapped in leather, powered by explosions. So instead of teaching kids how to ride safely, like previous generations did with mini bikes, dirt trails, and backyard practice, modern parents go the opposite way. Not under my roof, they say, handing their teenager the keys to a 2-ton SUV instead. And sure, cars are technically safer, but that bubble-wrapped upbringing creates an entire generation that sees motorcycles as reckless, not rewarding. The irony? Many of those same parents used to ride, but they gave it up when they had kids, and now they treat motorcycles like cigarettes. Something you might have done when you were young and dumb, but definitely not something you pass down. Meanwhile, insurance companies aren't helping. Some schools even ban students from riding to class. The cultural message is clear. If you ride a motorcycle, you're not just risky, you're irresponsible. And so the bike culture dies before it even begins. Not because kids aren't curious, but because they're scared out of it by the very people who once rode. Number 8. The rise of virtual adventure, replacing real adventure. In South Korea, Japan, and increasingly in the US, a strange thing is happening. Young people crave adrenaline, but only from the couch. Why risk road rash when you can live stream motorcycle stunts in Ultra HD or race MotoGP tracks in VR with zero consequences? This new breed of digital thrill seeker is turning real-world danger into pixelated entertainment. And who can blame them? Real riding takes money, time, gear, risk, and practice. But on a console, you can feel like Rossi by dinner time. No helmet required. But there's a darker side to this shift. As gaming, social media, and VR worlds become more immersive, they slowly replace the desire for physical adventure. A ride across Vietnam or the Alps used to be a life-changing journey. Now it's a travel vlog to scroll past in bed. Instead of exploring, we consume. Instead of trying, we spectate. It's not just laziness, it's lifestyle creep. Apartments are smaller, budgets are tighter, commutes are online, and in this new world, real motorcycles feel like an analog relic in a digital universe. Something from a time when boredom existed and adventure had to be earned. Number 9. Government policies favoring cars and public transport. In countries like Singapore, the Netherlands, and Denmark, the government isn't trying to kill the motorcycle culture directly, but they might as well be. Their focus is laser-locked on public transportation, EV incentives, and urban design that prioritizes pedestrians and cyclists. Motorcycles? Barely a footnote. Take Singapore. Owning any vehicle there is brutally expensive, but bikes get hit hard with taxes, road permits, and tight restrictions. In the Netherlands, riding a scooter or moped is still popular, but full-size motorcycles are squeezed out by endless bike lanes, bus-only corridors, and sky-high insurance. And in Denmark, many roads and policies treat motorcycles like a nuisance. No perks, no brakes, just red tape. And here's the irony. Motorcycles should be the perfect middle ground. They're fuel-efficient, take up less space, and reduce congestion. But instead of embracing them as a smart solution, these countries lump them in with old-world problems like noise, emissions, and danger. When governments ignore motorcycle needs in infrastructure, licensing, and policy, the message is clear. Bikes aren't part of the future. And when the future has no space for motorcycles, the culture fades into the past, even if riders still want to hang on. Number 10. Bad weather and seasonal limitations. In places like Canada, Scandinavia, and much of Northern Europe, motorcycles spend half the year sitting under a tarp. Snow, ice, salt, and freezing temperatures turn riding into either a fantasy or a death wish. And when you can only enjoy your bike for 3 or 4 months a year, it's hard to build a real community around it. Sure, there are hardcore winter riders with heated gear and studded tires, but they're the exception, not the rule. Most people just don't see the point in buying a machine that'll collect dust for 9 months. And when you take long breaks from riding, your skills fade, your enthusiasm dips, and your mechanical problems multiply. What really kills the culture, though, isn't just the weather. It's what comes with it. Seasonal riding means fewer events, fewer meetups, fewer clubs and dealerships that can't survive the off-season. It becomes a solo hobby, not a shared one. The passion starts to feel like a chore. Motorcycle culture thrives where roads are open year-round, where you can ride after work in January, just like you can in June. In countries where winter stretches forever, the culture doesn't just pause, it starts to shrink. Number 11. Aging rider demographics with no replacement. In Germany, France, the United States, and even parts of Italy, the average motorcycle rider isn't just middle-aged. They're well into retirement territory. Club rides look like AARP meetups. Dealerships are filled with graybeards reminiscing about their 82 Goldwing, and the younger crowd? Nowhere to be found. This isn't just a fun statistic, it's a cultural time bomb. For decades, motorcycles were passed down like family traditions. Your uncle rode, your dad rode, so of course you ride too. But today, fewer young people are picking up helmets. The connection is broken. Some of it's cost, sure, but a lot of it is image. For Gen Z, motorcycles feel like relics of another era. Something boomers talk about while polishing chrome in the garage. The culture hasn't kept up. Instead of evolving, it's grayed out. Events are getting smaller. Clubs are folding. Even legendary rallies like Sturgis and Daytona are seeing shifts. Less rowdy rebellion, more vintage bike shows, and soft leather seats. And while that's not bad, it's not growth either. When the people who carry the torch age out, and there's nobody there to catch it, what happens to the flame? Number 12. Social media is changing the culture. In almost every country from Italy to India, Brazil to the US, motorcycle culture hasn't vanished, just moved online. And in the process, it's changed. Riders used to gather in person. Rides, wrench nights, club meetings, races. Now, the community often exists more on TikTok than at the track. Instead of getting your hands dirty, tuning carbs with a buddy, it's gear haul unboxings and curated GoPro reels. Instead of stories around a campfire, it's story highlights on Instagram. This isn't inherently bad, but it's different. Surface-level content gets rewarded. Style beats substance, and the deeper parts of bike culture, the camaraderie, the risk, the craftsmanship, gets lost under filters and algorithms. In Southeast Asia, this has created an explosion of cosmetic mods and clout-chasing builds. In the US, it's turned riding into content creation, and globally, it's shifted the focus away from the ride itself toward how the ride looks. The culture isn't gone, it's just mutating. The question is whether that digital version can carry the same soul, or if we're trading connection for clicks. Number 13. Youth are priced out before they even begin. In countries like the UK, Australia, and even parts of the US, getting into motorcycles is no longer the affordable gateway to freedom it once was. Between licensing costs, sky-high insurance premiums, safety gear, and even basic used bike prices climbing, the cheap entry point has evaporated. Back in the day, a kid could mow lawns for a summer and buy a used bike, a helmet, and hit the road. Now, you need a loan before you even twist the throttle. Combine that with expensive MSF-style courses, maintenance costs, and fuel prices, and suddenly Uber looks a lot cheaper than riding. Worse, many used bikes are either clapped-out junk or collector-priced classics. Affordable, quality beginner bikes are being scooped up by flippers or exported to countries with stronger demand. So, for a 19-year-old dreaming of riding, the math just doesn't work anymore. In places like New Zealand or Canada, it's not uncommon to see fewer and fewer young faces at group rides. Not because they don't want to ride, but because they can't afford to start. And when the bottom of the ladder breaks, the whole culture starts to collapse from the ground up. Motorcycle culture isn't dying everywhere, but in some countries, it's definitely on life support. Regulations, rising costs, and shifting values have all chipped away at what used to be a vibrant, rebellious, deeply personal world. And while passion is still alive in garages and forums, it's not guaranteed to survive another generation unless something changes. But here's the upside. Culture doesn't disappear overnight. It evolves. And if riders, builders, and brands start listening, adapting, and inviting the next wave in, there's still hope. What do you think? Is motorcycle culture fading, transforming, or thriving where you live? Share your perspective in the comments below. Your input is crucial to understanding this complex shift. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more deep dives, and share it with a fellow rider. Let's keep this conversation roaring.